Hello guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Assassin's Creed Tour Mode. So without further ado, let us continue the Alexandria section of the tours. Now we're starting with Alexandria, City of Celebration, number of stations 4, region Alexandria. Learn about the various forms of entertainment that existed in Alexandria. Estimated time 3 minutes. So let's begin.
Welcome to Alexandria, City of Celebration. Like most Greek cities, Alexandria offered multiple forms of entertainment. Most were related to cults, religious practices, and the festivities surrounding those practices. Among those festivities, the most important ones were the dynastic celebrations, instituted in honor of the deified Ptolemaic kings and queens. These celebrations could go on for many days and included sacrifices, offerings, processions, and public banquets.
And back going off that statue, a bit of naked wrestling. At least that's what I think it is. Okay. I see some bacon over there. Nom nom nom.
How shall I sing of thee, brightly shining one?
Yeah, that won't make it into the chat, that song. It sounds bobbins. But at least they've got some bacon, so yay.
Games and competitions were organized whenever possible in locations such as the stadium, the hippodrome, and the gymnasium. The residents of Alexandria favored such events where athletes, poets, and musicians from Egypt and other cities of the Greek world competed.
And I see the start of the Olympics, maybe. And I see these fellows on this plate are related to the killer from Dead by Daylight. Well, the trapper killer from Dead by Daylight, because they've got a tiny wang. Which is why the trapper in Dead by Daylight is so grumpy. Because he's so tiny down there.
Like all good Greek cities, Alexandria had a theater. The architecture of this structure is Roman in style. This is because the team duplicated a theater from Cyrene. Roman theaters were usually semicircular, built from scratch on a flat area with structures designed to enhance oration. Greek theaters were more oblong in shape, similar to a horseshoe, and favored the slopes of natural hills to support their acoustics.
That's nice to know. Well, they're putting on a play of some sort.
At the theater, one could witness the plays of contemporary comic and tragic authors. The play you are witnessing below is Menander's Dyskolos, more commonly known as the Grouch, a late and popular entry in the Greek comedies.
The Grouch, so that could be about Trump or Theresa May, either or which. So that was a nice short one to begin with. So let's see what's next on the list. Make sure there's none further down here that I may have missed. Right, so the next one is Alexandria, a commercial hub. And there you go. Square to quick travel. And I've changed Bayek's outfit for this one because the past few he's wore the same outfit, so you know. Just to zazz it up a slight bit. Isn't that like Bayek? Wonderful builders, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, otherwise known as Pharos, was one of the 7 wonders of the world. It sure was. The Ptolemaic Kingdom lasted about half a second. Alexandria, a commercial hub. Number of stations 6. Region Alexandria. Learn about the major economical role of Alexandria during ancient times. Estimated time 5 minutes.
Welcome to Alexandria. The ports of Alexandria were a major commercial hub, effectively connecting Egypt with the Mediterranean regions and beyond. A tremendous amount of materials and goods flowed through the city on a daily basis. The large port market was called the Emporion. It was there that merchandise was traded by the shipowners, called Nakliros,
Oh, that is a big city. That's big. Chickens. Oh, excuse me.
Food and other artisan work streamed out of Egypt. Ceramics, glass, golden rings, and minted coinage. The local potters, using traditional Egyptian techniques, competed with those from abroad, and the textile industry flourished. What Egypt did not produce itself was acquired through trade, using local resources such as wheat and papyrus. Most sought after was pine wood from Syria, iron and marble from the Greek islands, gold from Spain, and exotic fruits from Europe. All this commercial activity contributed to the already decadent wealth of the city.
What's he pouring that thing into? And where did that cup come from that's in her hand? That's some spooky shit. Excuse me, lady. Thank you. Wait, whoa. What's this? So they just had beds that you could just lie in? Okay. I'll stay in there because it keeps trying to magnetise me towards those white dots. Excuse me, lady. Thank you.
The wood imported to Port Mareotis through Alexandria's seaward ports was used in the nearby shipyards, where most of Egypt's ships were built. Employing tens of thousands of shipbuilders, the shipyards contributed to establishing the Egyptian fleet as one of the mightiest of the era. Any wood not used in shipbuilding was further disseminated through Egypt for various purposes.
That is a huge boat. I wonder if that actually existed back then. Because, damn, that is big. It probably did, I'm guessing. Excuse me. Boop. Boop.
The southern port of Lake Mareotis was the biggest in Alexandria. Save for a branch angling westward, the lake's size in the Ptolemaic era was roughly 40 to 50 kilometers from north to south. Its waters were maintained by a steady runoff from the Nile. In addition to the lake, a man-made canal was created to assist in the transfer of goods from the city to the port using barges, though it is not represented in the game due to its size.
So you were too lazy to put it in the game? Come on, you could have put it in the game. Lazy. Actually, if that was EA, they'll probably make you pay an extra 15 to 45 quid for it. Because that's EA for you. Holy crap, I've never seen this place before. Cool. Oh god, a sphinx type. Well, maybe not a sphinx. It's kind of like a sphinx, only with a bird's head instead of a lion, human thing head. There we got a goat that's so lazy it can't bother to rest its head, so it's got a little man to rest his head on. Okay.
Banking was one of the most distinctive innovations brought by the Greeks to Egypt. The centerpiece of Alexandria's wealth was the royal systematization of taxes on almost everything. Basic items such as salt, oil, beer, wheat, and linen were heavily taxed. As a result, the royal treasury of Alexandria was able to ensure the economic stability of most of the administrative areas of Egypt.
Well, if they're going to tax the crap out of beer, one of the main things that they had in Egypt, then of course they're going to rake in all that money. Greedy mother humpers.
By the late 12th century, the channel feeding the lake from the Nile silted up. Lake Mareotis lost its connection to the Mediterranean, as well as most of its water, as the lake slowly evaporated to a fraction of its former size. In modern times, Lake Mareotis is being kept alive through irrigation. However, only about 17% of its original size remains.
Interesting to know. Ooh, what's this? Okay, I thought he might have done something interesting, but nope, just parking his ass. Okay, let's see what's next. Introduction to Alexandria, 8 stations. Let's go. Oh boy, the next one's a big one. 22 stations. Damn. Happily ever after, in the ancient days, either party could initiate a divorce, no reason needed to be given. Well. Memphis was the longest lasting major metropolis in the history of the world. It's about 3,000 years. Give or take. It's going. Introduction to Alexandria, number of stations 8, region Alexandria. Learn about the city of Alexandria and the Canopic Way. Estimated time 5 minutes.
Welcome to Introduction to Alexandria.
Thank you very much, sir.
After conquering Egypt in 331 BCE, Alexander the Great decided to build a new city, which, as per his habit, he named after himself.
That horse looks terrified.
After his death, Alexandria quickly became the capital city of the Ptolemaic kingdom and the most important city of the Greek world.
Look at the poor horsey. He looks terrified, and Alexander the Great looks derpy as fuck. Oh, gee. Excuse you? Gits? God.
The city was built between the Mediterranean Sea and Lake Mareotis, which resulted in Alexandria becoming a crucial cultural hub and trading center.
Oh, that was a nice short thing. Run, Bayek. Stop slowing down. There you go.
Sumptuous buildings could be seen wherever one turned their gaze. The royal palaces, the many temples, the gymnasium, lush public gardens, and large avenues.
Yeah, I don't think having a large avenue would be, you know, a place where people go, oh, I want to go to this place because they've got a large avenue. It's like saying, oh, I want to go to New York because they have a lot of back alleys. Nah.
With its incomparable beauty and advantageous geographic location, Alexandria attracted foreigners, intellectuals, and traders. One of the most cosmopolitan cities of the ancient world, Alexandria supplanted even Athens as the most important Greek city in history.
Excuse me, horsey. Thank you. Move, horsies. Move, move, move.
Egyptian obelisks were highly prized by Roman architects. While Roman design previously favored the use of a single monument, Egyptian obelisks tended to come in pairs and were generally located at the entrance of temples. Several ancient Egyptian obelisks are still in existence today, though many are spread out across the world in locations such as Paris, Rome, New York, and London. All of this shows that Alexandria was significantly influenced by the rich past of Egypt.
Really, there's an Egyptian obelisk in New York. Fancy. Whenever I go there, I'll have to try and find it and have a butcher's. Because that's how much I don't like London. I would rather go to a completely different country to see one rather than go to London. Because I don't like London.
Alexandria had several main streets. Its most famous artery was the Canopic Way. It was lined with sumptuous buildings, houses, and temples, and was roughly 8 kilometers in length. This street was one of the most important shipping entrances to Alexandria and often hosted processions and festivals.
And you can't beat a good festival. I'm just guessing that because I've never been to one, so I'm just guessing because... Right, horsey. Horsey. Oh, horsey. Oh. What did my horse not you, fake horse? God damn it, fake horse. Gonna ask this one's quite a way down here.
The width of the street, 30 meters, was abnormally large even by Greek standards. This is likely because the Canopic Way was made in a short span of time and based on an urban plan, as opposed to being slowly built over time, as was usual for the era.
Ah, well. At least there's plenty of room for... Excuse you? Did you just pass through me like a ghost? How dare you? At least if it was a wide road, then there's plenty of room for overtaking and stuff. I'm guessing. I don't know. I can't drive, so I don't know.
The Canopic Way originated in the western cemeteries, skirted the gymnasium, and then exited the city to head east through massive doorways towards Canopus. This structure was known as the Canopic Door.
So now we know why a canopic door is called a canopic door. Why are you not holding the reins like I am? You're using your horse wrong. You're supposed to hold the reins, not hold them with your psychic powers. That's creepy and weird. See, look at him. He's holding the horse's reins with his head. That guy's weird. Anywho, let's go for the next one. The big 22 station one. The Siege of Alexandria. Oh boy. 22 stations, so this will probably take about 4 hours. Depending on how much they talk on each station. Due to the pyramids, the Giza Plateau became a city of the dead. Tombs were built everywhere, as well as smaller pyramids for queens and princesses. Underwater adventure. The Pharos was lost in time until 1968 when it was rediscovered by a team led by marine archaeologist. Somebody, I didn't have time to read the name. Yeah. Siege of Alexandria. Number of stations 22. Region Alexandria. Learn about the Siege of Alexandria from Julius Caesar's perspective. Ugh, stupid Julius Caesar. Estimated time 20 minutes. Okie
Welcome
dokie.
to the Siege of Alexandria.
So buckle in for some fair bit of learnings.
Among the collection of writings attributed to Julius Caesar are his descriptions of the Siege of Alexandria, the Gallic Wars, and the commentaries on the Civil War. These archives contain information on different campaigns, the Wars of Alexandria, Africa, and Spain. Each of them recounts Caesar's military activity from 58 BCE to 45 BCE. Though Caesar's documents remain a main source of information, it's important to note that the perspective is limited. It is necessary for other historical documents to be taken into consideration to provide a better understanding of events.
Exactly, because just taking one person's view of events would, it would be Trump's fantasy because he wants everyone to believe all the lies that comes out of his mouth rather than the truth. So, yeah.
The Siege of Alexandria closely relays the events of the Civil War that led up to the event and describes how Caesar was besieged in the palace of the Ptolemies. Other ancient authors have left equally valuable and sometimes contradictory information.
You mean Caesar wasn't always telling the truth? I'm shocked. You mean Caesar wanted himself to look good?
In the events leading up to the Siege of Alexandria, Cleopatra VII and her brother were fighting over control of Egypt. Young King Ptolemy XIII's regent, Pothinus, had firm control over the young pharaoh, and an outmaneuvered Cleopatra soon went into hiding. This set the stage for Pompey's arrival in Alexandria. Having lost his battle against Caesar in 48 BCE, the Roman general turned to his allies, the Egyptians, for safe harbor. But on the advice of Pothinus, Ptolemy XIII had Pompey assassinated in the hopes of earning Caesar's favor. This would turn out to be a most unfortunate decision.
Ptolemy. You're just like one of Trump's lapdogs. Desperate for attention. Do anything you want to criticise other people and just get screwed over yourself, so yeah.
Upon his arrival in Alexandria, Caesar was presented with Pompey's head. The sight of a Roman murdered by Egyptians did not sit well with him. Caesar made his displeasure clear, ordering the return of Cleopatra, and for the siblings to resolve their differences and resume their co-rule of Egypt, as per the will of their father. Neither Pothinus nor Ptolemy XIII wished to accede to this demand. While doing his best to aggravate Caesar, Pothinus secretly plotted against the Roman ruler and sent word for Egyptian general Achilles to bring his 20,000 men to fight on his behalf. While Pothinus plotted against Caesar, Cleopatra made a bold move.
Yeah, she did. I think she tried to, get a bit of fresh guy. Is it miles over there? Rather than just follow the line, I was going to come this way because it's somewhere over here. If I can shortcut it without going all that way, then why not? So I need to climb this scaffolding. What are you doing? Oh, never mind. I thought he was having a tinkle up on the scaffolding. Say that dirty bar stool. Can I have a tinkle up on the scaffolding? It'll rot away. Down. Oh, fudge. Whoopsies. I thought it was. Yeah, never mind. Never mind. I thought there was ground below me, but no. It really wasn't. Well, it could have gone worse, I guess. Don't stop walking, just run. I don't know why, but games at the moment, like you got this, Dead by Daylight, they all have the same issue where you'll be running and then they just stop running and just go into like a real slow, sluggish pace, like they're walking in treacle. Well, how the fuck do I get up there? Can I climb up this? Can I climb up? There you go. Can't find a way through, so if can't find a way through, make your own way. There we go. Oh, this is that palace area, I think, where we come to in the main game.
There are various descriptions of the encounter
Bow,
between
chicka, wow,
Caesar
wow.
and Cleopatra.
They're getting it on.
One report states that she snuck into the palace alone at night. Another account claims she was accompanied by an ally and was brought inside the palace wrapped in a carpet bag.
See? That's a bit from the game.
Though exactly what happened at this fateful meeting is up for debate, what is known is that Cleopatra met with Caesar and earned his approval. Pothinus and Ptolemy XIII were most vexed with this turn of events.
Yeah, because that's the part we did in the game. We wrapped Cleopatra up in a rug and just carried her in, as you do. Right, let's leave these hot couple to... Ugh. Ooh, can I cut through this way? Can I cut through this way? Yes, I can. Can maybe? Yes, no, maybe so. I think I need to go through because I think I saw the line heading this way. Yeah, there we go. Boop. They're having a nice dance. Oh, he's back over here now.
With Cleopatra finally present, Caesar chose to act as mediator between the siblings in the hopes of a peaceful resolution.
Look at that look of Ptolemy there,
It
like,
did not take long for things to sour. During a banquet given to celebrate the reconciliation, there was an assassination attempt on Caesar. It was the Roman leader's own barber who thwarted the attack. Once it was revealed that the king's regent, Pothinus, had ordered the attack, Caesar had him executed. He then placed the young king under guard.
oh, stupid Ptolemy with your stupid sly looks at people. Give a slap. Physics. Right, where's the next one? It is over here. I mean, they could probably have these a lot closer to these things, but yeah, I'm just spread around miles apart, so that makes it feel longer. Do. Get away, you Romans.
Caught within the palace with roughly 4,000 troops, and with the knowledge that the arrival of enemy forces was imminent, Caesar sent for help from Syria, Rhodes, and Cilicia. He ordered his men to dig a ditch around the palace and build a wall leading to the harbor. This would ensure Caesar's access to the sea. When Egyptian General Achilles arrived in the city with 20,000 men, the battle for Alexandria began.
Cool. I'm not sure if that was the battle that was in the actual main game, because there was a bit of a ruckus where it was all kicking off. It was a pretty good part of the game. Apart from when we had to kill the poor elephants. That was a sad part of the game. Poor... Oh boy. The hell?
With so few men at his disposal, Caesar could not risk a battle just yet. He sent ambassadors to Achilles in the name of Ptolemy to propose a truce. Knowing that the orders did not come from the young king, and angered by the pharaoh's imprisonment, Achilles had the messengers assassinated. With Caesar confined within the palace, Achilles positioned his troops around the city. Skirmishes broke out throughout the streets of Alexandria and went on for several days and nights. Though they were outnumbered, Caesar's men were able to hold the enemy back. This prompted Achilles' next move: capture the Roman fleet stationed in the harbor.
Cool. Oh wait, can I go this way? Yes. But yeah, the part where we go through this battle that's kicking off in Alexandria, that was a pretty good part of the game. Allons-y! Woohoo! Spladoosh. There we go. Would be nice if there was more missions like that, because it was pretty cool. Hopefully in any of the other DLC packs that they do for this, because they have said that once the Pharaoh DLC that comes out in about 2 weeks, once that's out, they're going to work on more DLC packs for this, so there'll be more stuff to come out for this. So hopefully they can try and do one that's like more actiony adventures like that. That's pretty cool.
Although the palace offered protection, losing the port meant the end of help and supplies. Caesar knew he had to protect the fleet. While he and his troops succeeded in regaining control of the port, he knew it would be impossible to sustain. Caesar ordered the burning of the ships. With passage back to the palace closed off, he headed for the lighthouse of Alexandria.
Yeah, this is definitely part of the that mission that we did in the game, because at one point we actually did go to the lighthouse where we had to climb up, fight through the hoods of enemies, and we had to put something into the flames to make it change colour to be a signal to people.
Fighting their way through the Egyptian troops, Caesar and his men eventually reached Pharis Island. There, they took refuge within the lighthouse. With easy access to the open sea, Caesar was able to send messages to his allies requesting reinforcements and more supplies. The island fort also allowed him to control access to the harbor by relying on the chains used by the Egyptians to control ship traffic to and from Alexandria's docks. The exact chronology of events during the war in Alexandria remain imprecise. Conflicting accounts raise questions as to when, and even if, the Great Library of Alexandria was burned down at all. One account states that during the fighting, docks and warehouses were burned, and this was the fire that spread to the library. In another account, when Achilles cut off the harbor, Caesar had to leave the safety of the palace to defend his ships. As the enemies battled across the port, their arsenals set ships ablaze, and this destruction spread to the library. In either case, the Great Library was not completely destroyed. Experts point out that its location was too far from the harbor, and much later texts refer to the Great Library as being intact. Warehouses near the harbor contained manuscript copies awaiting export, and it is more likely that these documents were destroyed than the Great Library itself. The destruction of the Great Library may have been due to a number of fires over the ages. Its end was probably closer to the 4th century CE, when the Christian Emperor Theodosius I ordered the closure of all pagan temples. While some documents survived after being moved away, it remains unclear just what knowledge may have been lost. Where there are accounts of Achilles being in control of the battle against Caesar, it appears that instead Cleopatra's sister, siding with her brother, had him killed and put her ally Ganymedes in his place. Ganymedes proved a valuable tactician for the Egyptian side. It was his idea to cut Caesar's access to the harbor, thus trapping Caesar at the palace. During the time of Ptolemy I, canals had been dug throughout Alexandria to provide fresh water. Ganymedes had his men take control of these canals. After isolating their own water supply, he had his men pour salt water into the canals and cisterns that led to Caesar's camp.
So cutting off their fresh water supplies. Crafty. No, 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 no. Did not walk into that when I was nowhere near it. Well, I was near it, but I wasn't close to it. All I thought to trigger it, but well, never mind.
Panic erupted in Caesar's men. They wouldn't last long without fresh water. Recognizing that the porous limestone could help them, Caesar and his men dug wells to restore their water supply. Days later, the 37th Legion, comprised of Pompey's soldiers, arrived by ship. Unable to come ashore due to the winds, Caesar risked going out to meet them on the peninsula, Cape Chersonese. When the enemy learned Caesar's location, they rushed to intercept. Despite an obvious advantage for the Alexandrians, Caesar, with a Rhodian ship full of skillful sailors, emerged victorious. With help from the Allied ships, Caesar's victory enabled him to push the Egyptians back and secure the lighthouse. Gaining control of Pharos Island sent the Alexandrians into the sea and swimming back to the city. However, Caesar's fortification of the island didn't last long. The enemy regrouped and were set to storm the island. Panic-stricken, in spite of Caesar's encouragement, many of his men then fled their posts, either by ship or jumping into the sea.
Bunch of cowards. Well, tell her that. I don't know what he said.
Caesar attempted to retreat, but Port Eunostos' harbor was overrun with enemy ships, preventing escape. Reportedly, Caesar gathered his papers and leapt overboard in an attempt to swim to an allied ship farther out. Historian Cassius Dio claimed that Caesar would have drowned if he hadn't been able to remove his purple garment. Still, he managed to swim the distance and survive. The Alexandrians recovered the cloak and used it as a trophy to commemorate the Roman debacle.
So mighty Caesar also ran like a coward. Yes, I just said that he ran like a coward. You have to tell me to say that. I just said it, you crazy person on a horse. God.
Unhappy with Ganymedes and wanting their king restored, the Alexandrians approached Caesar with a compromise. Caesar agreed to release Ptolemy XIII after entreating him to spare the kingdom and remain loyal to Rome. Once freed, however, the king defied the agreement and continued the war.
People not sticking to their word? Who would have thunk it? And by the way, whoever called me an idiota, I'll slap your horse in the face. With your face for added insults. Shut up, you.
By this time, a faithful ally of Caesar's, Mithridates, arrived in Egypt, clashing with Ptolemy's troops at Pelusium. Outnumbering the enemy, Mithridates secured the region between Pelusium and Alexandria. Ptolemy, warned of Caesar's ally marching on Alexandria, sent his troops to prevent passage over the river.
Ptolemy's such a tryhard. Will you shut up over there? Git.
Mithridates warned Caesar in time, and the two groups confronted the armies of Ptolemy in the Delta. In the Battle of the Nile, the Romans gained the upper hand, sending the Egyptians fleeing. In the tumult and panic, King Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile.
Stupid tryhard. And the last point of this long tour.
After the siege ended, Cleopatra VII married her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, enabling her to reign over Egypt until 30 BCE. Under her rule, Alexandria settled into its position within the Roman Empire, and eventually surpassed Athens as one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar remained in Egypt for a short time. He and Cleopatra would later have a son named Caesarion.
And not named after the way of a woman to have a baby without going through. Because a lot of people think that Caesarean section was named after Rome. Was named after Caesar's son, Caesarion. Wasn't. Complete misnomer. Anywho. So Cleopatra married her own brother. She was one pervy mofo. So she married her brother. She had a thing with Alexander the Great. She had a son with Caesar. Who didn't she have it off with? Well, apart from me, because, yeah. For one, I wasn't alive back in that time, so yeah. Or was I? I wasn't. Right, next we have Okay, so there's 2 more left on this one. Okie dokie. So next, Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. And a right goer by the sound of it. A right old goer. Slippery slopes. Have you tried sliding down the side of a pyramid? Yes, I have. And it's quite strange when you're sliding down, looking all cool, and he just stops and grabs onto a freaking ledge. That's so annoying. So very annoying. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, number of stations 11, region Alexandria. Learn about Cleopatra, the last of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs, and a right old goer. Estimated time, 9 minutes.
Welcome
Which
to
if
Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt.
you went with Cleopatra and you lasted 9 minutes, she'll have your head off and your winky because that won't be enough for her. Like I say, she's a right old goer. Go. Bit more forward. There you go.
Cleopatra VII Theophilopator ascended the throne in 51 BCE at the age of 18. Though her early attempts to maintain power were often challenged, she eventually prevailed and became the sole ruler of Egypt.
After marrying her brother.
According to Plutarch, she was the only Ptolemaic pharaoh to speak the Egyptian language. Her intelligence, coupled with a good education and a great political mind, allowed her to make the alliances necessary to maintain the independence of Egypt while Rome was becoming a Mediterranean empire.
But she still married her brother. So yeah. Sounds like a sort of guest on the Jeremy Kyle show. I married my brother to rule Egypt, and now he wants to, you know, have inappropriate relations. Fight!
It is important to understand that Cleopatra's knowledge of Egyptian language and keen understanding of the culture allowed her to make powerful ideological reference that resonated with ancient Egyptians. By associating herself with the goddess Isis, the Divine Mother, great of magic, and repository of divine essence, Cleopatra firmly established herself as the protector of the two lands and legitimized her place on the throne.
No, she did that by, yet again, marrying her brother. The game just said that a moment ago, so, you know. A made-up god had nothing to do with it. Just saying. She married her freaking brother. See? Even that guy's laughing at it. Oh, that guy's falling over.
Upon his death in 51 BCE, Ptolemy XII Aulus bequeathed his kingdom to his daughter and eldest son, Cleopatra VII and Ptolemy XIII. As was custom, the siblings were married. The new pharaoh was 10 years old, his sister wife 17. The early years of their reign were not easy. Between 50 and 48 BCE, droughts and floods aggravated Egypt's problems. General Achillas and the royal advisor Pothinos kept intervening in the young ruler's political decisions, and eventually colluded to turn Ptolemy XIII against Cleopatra. By 48 BCE, Cleopatra was in exile.
Okay, so this guy hasn't fallen over. He's dead. I thought it was just someone who'd fallen over. Well, he did, which is kind of falling over. Oh, God, that
During
face.
Cleopatra's exile, the Roman Empire was not
Get rid of
without
that
its own
face.
internal conflict.
There we go.
Caesar and Pompey were at war with one another.
Oh, he's
and
not dead.
after his
He's
defeat in 48
still
BCE,
twitching.
Pompey fled to Alexandria in the hope of finding refuge. This turned out to be an unwise decision. Listening to his advisors, Ptolemy XIII elected to have Pompey assassinated, his head kept as a gift, in the hopes of acquiring Caesar's favor. This gambit backfired. Instead of earning approval, the murder of a Roman greatly angered Caesar.
Yeah, so Ptolemy, you're a dick. You're not going to get this guy a doctor? No? Okay. Sorry, guy. Apparently they don't give a crap about you, so... Yeah. Oh, what the hell? I'm trying to stand a bit more closer to him, but that's as far as I can go. He's protected by an invisible wall. As you do.
Cleopatra, aware of Caesar's anger against Ptolemy for the murder of Pompey, decided to take advantage of the situation. She returned to Egypt in secret, hoping to establish an alliance with one of the most powerful men of the time.
Yeah, Bayek.
Outside of the legend, where she had herself smuggled into his quarters in a carpet, what exactly happened during that fateful meeting remains a mystery. However, Caesar seemed to see a better ruler for Egypt in Cleopatra than in her young and too easily influenced brother. Invoking Ptolemy XII's will, Caesar attempted to mediate peace between the siblings.
Well, knowing the way Cleopatra was, it's not much of a mystery to guess what happened there. I bet about it. Go wow wow. Yeah. Oh, poor Mr. Kitty.
Ptolemy XIII was enraged by the turn of events, and his advisors were none too happy to see Cleopatra return. Urged on by General Achillas and Pothinos, the young pharaoh plotted against Caesar and Cleopatra, resulting in the siege of Alexandria in 47 BCE. It was in March 47 BCE that Caesar defeated Ptolemy XIII's forces. The young pharaoh drowned in the Nile after having fled the battlefield.
The pleb.
With her opponents dead or powerless, Cleopatra married her other much younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, and finally claimed the throne of Egypt for good. The end of the Alexandrian War also cemented the romantic and political alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar.
You need to write all these sort of things down in a notebook to work out what the hell's going on, because she married two of her brothers. She had it off with Alexander the Great. She had it off with Caesar and had a kid with him. She was putting out there like nobody's business. Cleopatra, have respect for yourself. Yeah. And get rid of these poor dead kitties. That's just evil.
In June of 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, whom she called Caesarion. Caesar did not accept the boy as his heir, choosing
Wow, what a
instead
prick.
his nephew Octavian. Nonetheless, on his return to Rome, Caesar invited the queen and her brother husband to stay in the city. Her presence still drew much disapproval from the Senate. Always a strategist, Caesar left 4 legions in Egypt, and a man he trusted to direct Egyptian affairs, giving him control of the wheat supplies essential to Rome. Cleopatra and her entourage remained in Rome until March 44 BCE, when Caesar was murdered.
And I helped with that murder. Yay. Not literally, of course, because that would be weird. So Caesar there, being a prick that he is, rather than have his own son be a ruler, he chose somebody else. What a prick. I'm glad he got stabbed. A lot. The fuck was that then? Sounded like a demon or something. But yeah, so far, Cleopatra's just a right old goer. She will go with anybody with power. And Caesar's just a big old prick.
Caesar's most faithful ally, Mark Antony, often visited the Queen of Egypt during his stay in Rome. Unlike most, he recognized the legitimacy of Caesarion, the natural son of Caesar. Antony knew he would need the riches of Egypt in order to fight Octavian and claim the Roman Empire. Cleopatra, in return, saw a powerful ally. In the winter of 41 BCE, she arranged a sumptuous tour of Egypt by boat to show Antony the wealth of her country and the power she held as its ruler. A romantic and political relationship followed. The Roman Senate was once again most displeased. To calm spirits in Rome, Antony married Octavia, sister of Octavian.
Yeah, so when I said she had a thing with Alexander the Great, I was wrong. I meant to say Mark Antony. My bad, because she would have had to be like some sort of time traveller to do that, because I think Alexander the Great was about 300 years before her time, so yeah, that wouldn't have made sense. Then again, I am an idiot, so.
Despite his marriage to Octavia, Antony remained Cleopatra's lover, and she gave birth to their children. Cleopatra increased her kingdom's territory and started a political propaganda alongside her lover in Egypt and beyond. She hoped to create a Ptolemaic federal empire with Alexandria at its center. Antony eventually repudiated his Roman wife for the Egyptian queen, much to the dismay of the Roman elite. However, while Mark Antony focused on Egypt, Octavian carefully gained military and political ascendancy over him in Rome.
Okie dokie. Sweet, sweet, yeah, for stretching. Oh Christ, that statue was creepy.
His own propaganda campaign and succeeded. The Roman people hated Mark Antony and Cleopatra. To avoid the censure still inherent in attacking a fellow Roman, Octavian simply declared war against Egypt. Rome's power still reigned supreme. The powerful Egyptian fleet, led by Cleopatra as well as Mark Antony's forces, were defeated in 31 BCE in Actium. Octavian arrived in Egypt in 30 BCE to formalize his victory. The following events remain difficult to confirm.
Oh yeah, this is where she killed herself.
It is believed that after hearing a rumor about Cleopatra's suicide, Mark Antony committed suicide himself. He was brought to the queen as he slowly passed away. Knowing that Octavian would have her chained and paraded through Rome in defeat, Cleopatra planned her own suicide. She most likely killed herself with arsenic, though admittedly, the version where she uses an asp to deliver a fatal bite may be considered more dramatic. What happened to the body of Cleopatra is still a mystery.
Yeah, the bit with the snake in the basket, that's the version I've always heard of how she killed herself. She got one of her maids... Oh, no, never mind, she's alive still. She just scratched her forehead. It's like, Christ, how long have I got to lie here? I've got an itch. Ah, fuck it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. But yeah, like the version I've heard was after Mark Antony had died. She got one of her handmaidens, servant people, to bring her a basket with a snake in it, an asp or something, and then she put her hand in, the snake bit her, and off this mortal coil she shuffled. Boop. I got your feet wet. Git. Anyway, next one, which I think is the last of the Alexander section. The Greek pharaohs. Only 7 stations, so it shouldn't be as long. I want to try and get this tour mode done before March 13th when the new DLC comes out, so we can go straight into that. I did hear that there was doing a lead-in mission, like a free mission being added to the game, but there's been no update yet, so whether it's already in the game, gone live, or what, I don't know, but yeah. When the DLC comes out, I'll start off with that mission, then lead into the DLC. A bit like I did with the last DLC. Anyway, here we go on the next tour. The Greek Pharaohs, number of station 7, region Alexandria. Learn about the founding... Excuse me, someone's smoking in the house, it's making me joke. Learn about the founding of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Estimated time, 5 minutes. My kingdom, for someone not smoking his bloody house so can breathe. God, I hate smoking and smokers.
Welcome.
That's disgusting.
The Greek Pharaohs.
Ooh, going out here, are we? Yeah, cool. I think we came here for a mission at one point. Yes, we did. Yeah, because that's the sarcophagus where Alexander the Great was, if I remember correctly.
Pharaohs were considered divine incarnations of the gods. As an avatar of the gods living on Earth, the pharaoh's role was to preserve fundamental values and universal harmony by removing chaos, Izfet, and ensure that justice, Mot, prevailed. The pharaoh, by divine ancestry and through multiple offerings, was the bond that unites the world of men to the world of the gods and allows the maintenance of the cosmic order.
Well, now there's no pharaohs, and there's no. I know the whole of reality hasn't collapsed because of the gods being a bit ticked off, so I just presume it was all bollocks.
The Ptolemaic dynasty reigned
Wow,
over
that
Egypt
dark
from
statue head on the
305
right looks
BCE to 30
creepy.
BCE. The dynasty was called the Ptolemies of the Lages,
It's
in
dynasty, not
recognition of the
dynasty.
founder of the dynasty, Ptolemy
Dynasty.
Lagos, a Greek general and close friend of Alexander the Great. While Macedonian, Ptolemy Lagos understood that to be accepted by the Egyptian people, he would have to adopt their traditions. Upon assuming the title of pharaoh, he changed his name to Ptolemy I Soter, meaning savior.
Okay, so the dark statue head doesn't look as scary when you zoom in, but when you kind of zoom out in that small little section there, it looks creepy as fuck. It's like a weird zombie head. Gross.
Born in 356 BCE, Alexander the Great went through a hasty education in the affairs of the kingdom.
Wow, that kid's
before
got
integrating into the Macedonian army.
the face on
where
that
he
kid looks like
quickly
he's
rose
40
through the
or something.
ranks. After his father's assassination in 336 BCE, which some believed was orchestrated by Alexander himself, he became king of Macedonia. Ruler of a unified kingdom and leader of a large army, Alexander set his sights on conquest. Eager to reclaim the Greek cities of Asia Minor, he took on the Persian forces, earning victory after victory.
Well, seriously, look at that face. It's clearly the body of a child, but the face looks like the face of someone who's in their mid to late 40s. Damn. He has not aged well in his short life in that picture. Painting, whatever.
Ever victorious, Alexander the Great marched on,
There we go,
laying
focus.
siege to city after city until he reached Egypt, where the Persians were defeated yet again. Viewed as a liberator by the Egyptian people, Alexander decided to become pharaoh in due form. He traveled to Thebes to make a sacrifice to
If you hear people
Apis,
shouting, I apologise,
then
there's
went to
weirdos
the
outside.
oasis of Siwa, where he was proclaimed son of Amun. Officially pharaoh of Egypt, Alexander spent much of the winter there and founded the city of Alexandria. Perhaps not coincidentally, being pharaoh allowed Alexander to spread propaganda to prepare further conquests. He resumed his military campaigns in 331 BCE.
Okie dokie.
On his deathbed in 323 BCE, Alexander the Great gifted the satrapy of Egypt to Ptolemy Lagos. Perfectly aware of the value of Egypt, Ptolemy ensured not only the stability of the country's borders, but also its economic and military development. At the same time, he worked with the Egyptian elite to maintain the internal order of the country. By 305 BCE, Ptolemy, well respected both in Egypt and in the Mediterranean, was at the head of the largest fleet of the Hellenistic world. Ptolemy officially took the title of Pharaoh of Egypt in January 304 BCE, on the anniversary of Alexander the Great's death. Alexander died in Babylon in 323 BCE. His remains were placed first in a solid gold sarcophagus, and then within another. The casket was carried in an ornate custom wagon, gilded and set with precious stones, and pulled by 64 mules crowned with gold. The funeral procession was diverted to a grandiose temple in Alexandria, built in the conqueror's honor under the orders of Ptolemy I.
Pretty cool looking tomb. Would be nice to see in real life, but like most things, it's probably been destroyed.
Julius Caesar visited Alexander's tomb at the capture of Alexandria, and the Roman Emperor Augustus reportedly placed flowers there. However, though many powerful leaders claim to have visited it, the tomb's location has gone missing from history. Some accounts do state that the golden coffin was replaced by a glass sarcophagus, probably by Ptolemy X. It is also implied that Cleopatra may have plundered the tomb in a time of financial crisis.
Wow. No respect for the dead. I feel like it would have been nice to see something like this in real life, because you don't see stuff like this these
You
days.
can still use photo mode at any time.
Thank you, voiceover guy. Thank you. Alright, let's see what's next on the list. So next we have pyramids. Have I done any of these? I have done none of these. Oh, so there's a couple of long ones, so let's just get the longest one done and out of the way. Riddle of the Sphinx. This is the longest one, so I'll just get it out of the way. Out of the way, so then it's done and dusted. Hey, here we go. There's the Sphinx. Cool. The Riddles of the Sphinx. Number of stations 22. Region Giza. Learn about the Great Sphinx of Giza and the different changes the Sphinx endured throughout time. Estimated time 15 minutes. Ooh.
Welcome to the... A sphinx was originally meant to be a personification of the king. The human head, wearing pharaonic regalia, was fused with the body of a lion, thus sharing the qualities the powerful animal possessed, namely its power, the swiftness of its attack, and its majestic authority. By these very virtues, it was also considered a symbol of protection. Unsurprisingly, statues of sphinxes could be found along the Dromas, protectors of the path taken by the gods to reach the temples.
Cool.
Over the centuries, enthusiasts and historians alike have wondered, who built the Sphinx? For what purpose? And who does it represent? These questions remain unanswered. Several theories do exist, however, some more credible than others. One theory supposes that Jedefre chose to pay homage to his father Khufu by building the Great Sphinx of Giza. The stone temple on the eastern face of the Sphinx would have been added later on by his brother and successor, Khafre, in order to strengthen the divine worship of their father. It would be the first Egyptian temple oriented with the sun. Another theory suggests that the Sphinx was built by Khafre and was meant to represent him. The arguments to support this hypothesis are based on the fact that the limestone beds used for the main work of the Temple of the Sphinx are geographically and architecturally similar to the Valley Temple of Khafre. Some believe that Khufu himself built the Sphinx, which was later finished under his successors, Jedefre and Khafre. These arguments are based on the stylistics of the engraving, the typology of the nemes, and the absence of a beard at the time of construction. While ancient Egypt as a whole leaves a rather monochrome vision of its monuments and statuary, it is vital to understand that in ancient times, absolutely everything was painted. The sun, eating away at the pigments of the colors, the sand, the climate, and the implacable impact of time, unfortunately destroyed the glorious colors of the Sphinx of Giza. Documents from an Arab Egyptologist of the 12th century, Abd al-Latif al-Baghdadi, indicate that traces of red were still visible in his time. Today, however, the only color that remains are traces of red close to the ears of the Sphinx, as well as hints of blue and yellow on the nemes, traditional colors for that type of headdress. The pigments for the color red were man-made, obtained by mixing different products such as clay, quartz sand, and very finely crushed hematite. Red had a strong symbolism in ancient Egypt. It was both the color of life and the color of death. It could represent the sands of the desert or the brilliance of the sun. Red was also associated with the god Seth, vengeful and destructive. The Egyptian word for red, Deshur, is also the word which was used to signify the desert, or the royal crown of Lower Egypt. In art, red was also the color used to paint the bodies of men, while yellow was used for women. It is possible that there were also color restoration efforts during the Saite period about 600 years before Cleopatra's rule, as indicated by notes on the Inventory Stele, discovered in 1858 by Auguste Mariette. It is because of this that the team made the decision to display it with its full range of colors, even though the Sphinx's colors would have likely faded by Cleopatra's time.
It still looks nice with the colours.
Dating from the 4th dynasty, approximately 2600 to 2500 BCE, the Great Sphinx of Giza is the oldest and largest sphinx that we know of. Carved from a natural limestone outcrop, the Sphinx measures 19.8 meters in height, 73.2 meters in length, and 14 meters in width. In order to bring polish to the imposing monument, several blocks of limestone were added after the initial construction phase. Since then, there have been numerous attempts at preservation. The polish present in the game integrates some aspects of modern restoration attempts. The team made this choice to present a more iconic version of the Sphinx of Giza to the player. Today, the Sphinx is called the Terrifying One. This appellation is translated from its Arabic name, Abu al-Hal, which in turn was derived from Baluba in Coptic.
He's not terrifying. If anything, he's pretty damn cool looking.
The Sphinx as a whole was carved in situ from a natural stone promontory. Its head was built in a limestone peak of the Mukattam Plate, and the body was sculpted in the underlying rock layer where it is located. The degradation of the Sphinx is due in particular to wind erosion and the different quality of limestone used in its construction. The level of sodium contained in the groundwater which abuts the stone is also a contributing factor.
I mean, yeah, if you're looking at that picture, it can look terrifying, especially if you just see it poking outside. It's like, oh shit, no. Nah, it's pretty cool. If only we had time travel.
The natural bedrock is seen through the oblique natural strata of the Sphinx's body that are similar to the surrounding limestone.
Yeah, if we had time travel, I would definitely go back in time to see places like this. It'd be so cool.
Since antiquity, people have always believed there was a hidden tomb deep within the Sphinx. It is thought that attempts to plunder the Sphinx began as far back as the First Intermediate period. Since then, numerous attempts to pierce the Sphinx's secrets have been carried out, leaving indelible scars upon the monument.
I remember watching a program years ago, and there was talk of, I think it was, well, it might have been the left paw that apparently under one of the paws at least, quite deep down there is like one solitary chamber that's deep down there, but for some reason no one's gone down to investigate it.
12 meters long and cut during pharaonic times, another entrance in the back of the Sphinx aroused curiosity. Although Thutmose IV attempted to seal it off, it was possibly reopened by treasure hunters. It was rediscovered by Howard Vyse and mapped more recently by Mark Lehner. This entrance at the back of the Sphinx leads to different cavities of a few meters each, in directions going inside the statue's body and under the surface. The team has used this opportunity to extrapolate a little more.
Cool.
While there have been no major discoveries pertaining to the Sphinx of Giza in recent years, theories and hypotheses continue to emerge. Without validation provided by archaeological sources, however, they remain unsubstantiated. The first of the main theories as to the Sphinx of Giza's meaning posits that the Sphinx was originally a massive representation of the god Anubis. Its principal arguments are that the head of the Sphinx is disproportionate compared to the size of its body. The second theory believes that the representation of two sphinxes on the stela of Thutmose IV would indicate that another stone sphinx had existed on the site itself, possibly even in paired symmetry on the other side of the Nile. However, neither of these theories can be verified in any way. Several scientific projects using new technologies have been put in place in the past decades. The most important was led by Mark Lehner and his team, who specialize in the study and survey of the Giza Plateau, including the Sphinx site. The mapping made it possible to see the materials used to construct the Sphinx, analyze the different layers of erosion, and figure out the most fragile areas to protect. After a few attempts at giving the Sphinx artistic proportions, the team instead decided to use photogrammetry mapping to faithfully reproduce the proportions of the Sphinx. What the Sphinx of Giza represented during its construction and how the Sphinx was perceived by the Egyptians of the New Kingdom are two very different matters. Originally a representation of the king imbued with the power of the lion, the Sphinx was eventually viewed as a direct representation of the Most Divine. It is theorized that kings of the New Kingdom believed that the Sphinx of Giza was the one who recognized and legitimized the ruler of Egypt. Thus, despite the fact the Sphinx of Giza was partially buried under the sand during his reign, Amenhotep II knew that the monument was of great importance. Amenhotep II built a second temple dedicated for the Sphinx as Horemakhet to pay homage to Khufu and Khafre, his predecessors. It became a common habit for this dynasty to spend time with their royal courts at the Sphinx. Its sanctuary became known as Setepet, the Chosen. Egyptologist Mark Lehner believed that Amenhotep II built a statue of himself anchored between the paws of the Sphinx, likely to legitimize his reign, alongside a stela found by Salim Hassan. Many other pharaohs of this dynasty, such as Tutankhamun and Ramses II, also left marks of their passage in a similar fashion, sometimes even stripping the stones of nearby temples and pyramids to do so. Amenhotep II's son and successor, Thutmose IV, was a frequent offender. While sleeping between the Sphinx's paws, the future Thutmose IV saw in a dream the god Horemakhet proclaiming his coming accession on the throne of the two lands. This was, of course, on the condition that he remove all of the sand covering the Sphinx, which stood guard as the personification of the god, and should thus never be engulfed by the sands of the desert. The 15-ton dream stela built by Thutmose IV to commemorate his dream was discovered by an Italian Egyptologist, Giovanni Battista Caviglia, in 1818, when he undertook the task of freeing the Sphinx from the sand, which had, yet again, covered it. Caviglia was looking for an entrance into the structure of the Sphinx, but instead he discovered an open-air chapel and stelas between the paws. Ashes from a ceremony were still present. Protected by sand, They quite possibly were from the last ceremonies in Roman times. That same year, Caviglia discovered fragments of the Sphinx's beard that had probably been added during the New Kingdom. If many of these pieces are held by museums in Cairo, a fragment is displayed at the British Museum, along with a piece of the uraeus that was on the Sphinx's headdress. It is believed this fragment of beard was possibly kept in place thanks to the statue of Amenhotep II, which was supposed to be located under the head of the Sphinx. A popular cultural legend purports that the nose of the Sphinx of Giza was lost during the time of Napoleon Bonaparte to the cannon fire of French soldiers in training. However, engravings from before the time of that campaign already depicted the Sphinx without a nose, indicating that it had been removed before the French campaign.
Kitty! Oh, look, kitty, kitty. See if I can stroke Kitty. Can I give you a squitch? Can I give you a squitch? Back, stroke the kitty. I'll bite you, suck.
The most plausible hypothesis is based on the research of the German historian Ulrich Harman. During the 1980s, Harman compiled medieval sources written by Arab authors. In doing so, he discovered that the Sphinx was once perceived as a favorable omen, a deity supporting sediment-nurturing floods and crops. Around 1378, a Sufi by the name of Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar could not stand this vision of the monument, and in an iconoclastic act, broke the nose of the Sphinx. According to the texts, he was then hanged and burned between the legs of the Sphinx for his crime.
So, because he was a bit salty over the Sphinx, he broke the nose off and he got what he deserved. What a prick. Ah, Kitty's gone. Ah, poor Kitty. Was a Kitty really here? Was it the great pharaohs coming to see me? And who dreams stale? Here lies the statue of the great Khafre, the glorious, the respected one under the protection of Ra. Memphis and the great cities adore his face and make great offerings on his car. One day, as the sun was high, Prince Tutmosis travelled here and rested under the shadow. As he dreamed, the great god spoke to him. Watch me, son, for I am your father. His father was Vader. Heromaket, oh God, I can't read that name, examined my body, left for ruins like a dying person. The desert that the desert that I used to rule now defies me before all who live. I will grant you the crown when you have relieved me from my burden. So apparently Vader was a bit pissed. Alright, let's have a look at one more. Seeing that long one's done. Oh God, these names I cannot pronounce them. Menkayuru's funerary complex. Yeah, a lot of these names are quite complicated for my dumb brain to figure out, because I'm dumb. In a name, Cleopatra, a Greek name can be defined as glory of her fatherland, or someone who marries her brother and sleeps around him. That person's funerary complex. Number of stations 6, region Gaza. Learn about that person's funerary complex. Estimated time 5 minutes.
Welcome to Menkaura's funerary complex.
Menkaure, okay. Menkaure.
The dimensions of Menkaura's pyramid are much less grandiose. However, unlike its predecessors, Menkaura's pyramid shows a great deal of complexity in its internal and external finish. The outside was partially covered in red granite, while the internal walls were richly decorated. This latter innovation would not catch on until the end of the 5th dynasty, when pyramid texts began to adorn the walls.
Cool. Are we going inside the pyramid, maybe? Or maybe not. Nah, I don't think so. Anywho.
Menkara's pyramid contains two sloping passages, both located in the northern side of the structure. The upper one was abandoned during the construction phase, whereas the lower one, slightly above the base of the monument, constitutes the real entrance. The lower passage leads to a first room, which, for the first time since the reign of Djoser, is decorated with engraved false doors.
Excavated by Colonel Howe. I can't read that name. Hey. Come on, mate. Run a bit quicker, please. There we go.
While Menkara's pyramid complex was unfinished at the time of his death, it was hastily and somewhat shabbily completed by his successor, Shepseskaf. Even so, this funerary structure marks a watershed in the history of this kind of monument. From then onwards, the pyramid shrank, whereas the mortuary temple expanded both in its quantitative and qualitative aspects. Of particular note, it is within Menkara's mortuary temple that one can find the heaviest block of limestone ever used for a pyramid complex, weighing in at over 200 tons.
Damn. It's almost as much as Trump. The fat mofo. Makes me wonder like how they managed to move such massive blocks and then get them up there.
Menkara's causeway was completed in mud brick by the king's successor, whereas the lower part was nothing more than a simple ramp. As for the Valley Temple, it was built in two phases. The foundations were first laid out in limestone during Menkara's reign, but the temple itself was completed in mud brick afterwards. As such, the Valley Temple was soon damaged and ended up being completely rebuilt during the 6th dynasty. Three small structures, referred to as Menkara's Queen's Pyramids, were erected along the southern side of the main pyramid. One of them was a smooth-faced pyramid, while the other two were more basic step pyramids. It is difficult to assess whether the latter were designed as such or were left unfinished with no casing to smooth out their surfaces.
Or maybe he had three wives, two he couldn't stand, one he liked. The one he liked had the nice pyramid, the two he couldn't stand got the shabby pyramids. That's a guess. I mean, if you don't like someone, you're not going to make the effort to, give them a nice pyramid. You'll just throw something shabbily together and make them do with that. That's a guess.
The easternmost pyramid was built with the traditional rooms and corridors found within a satellite pyramid meant to house the king's Ka. However, a granite sarcophagus was found within, leading to the conclusion that it was used as an actual tomb rather than as a symbolic cenotaph. Drawing on these observations, some assume that this pyramid was first built as a satellite pyramid for the king's Ka, before seeing its purpose change to that of a queen's tomb. Which queen, however, remains a mystery.
I'm going to guess it's a queen he didn't like that much or a queen that people didn't like that much, because if you're going to boast someone in something that's already been made for somebody else, you can't put the effort in to make them a nice fresh new one, then you really can't be bothered about that person. It's like, yeah, they're dead, but can we be asked to build a whole new pyramid for them? Nah, just stick her over there, she'll be fine. That's just my guess anyways. Because I mean, these pyramids, people must have liked the people who were buried inside, or they were forced to do it. Can't be asked to boast someone, yeah. They either weren't liked or they couldn't even be asked to force people to do it because they just didn't like the person who died. That's just me, my really bad guesses. Alright, so let's go for... let's do one more. Let's do the origins of the pyramid. The origins. Because that's something which I've always been kind of interested in. Strange bedfellows, the Ptolemaic dynasty needed protection from the Empire, and Rome could provide it thanks to an ally. Their blah blah words. I'm so dumb. The origin of the pyramid. Number Station 7, region Giza. Learn about early funerary monuments of ancient Egypt and their evolution into the pyramidal structure we know so well today. Estimated time,
Welcome
5
to
minutes.
The origin of the pyramid.
Thank you.
The origin of the word pyramid is controversial. Most believe that it originates with the Greek word pyramis, which referred to a bread of conical shape. Life and death in ancient Egypt were modeled on the cycle of the sun. The perfect shape of the smooth-faced pyramid became associated with the metaphor of the pharaoh transformed into one of the sun's rays in death. Pyramids represented the Benben, the primordial mound of the Heliopolitan creation myth. These stories permeated every aspect of Egyptian life to a greater or lesser extent. During the pre-dynastic period, the development of funerary practices was different, depending on whether one was located in Lower Egypt or Upper Egypt. Well before the pyramid, there was the burial pits. It is on the site of Merimde Beni Salome in Lower Egypt that we find the oldest funerary site, dating back to 5000 BCE. Study of the tombs revealed that the bodies of the deceased were deposited in a shallow grave, in a fetal position. Though a few objects were recovered from these graves, they offered no insight as to the social class of those interred within. In Upper Egypt, pre-dynastic practices are easier to study, but reveal more complex funerary rites. They are divided into two cultural phases, Badarian and Nagada. The Badarian phase ranged from 4400 BCE to 3800 BCE. Small necropolises were discovered on the outskirts of villages, revealing the emergence of a funerary cult. The bodies of the deceased were lowered into an oval grave and covered with goat or gazelle skins. Items needed in everyday life were added alongside the body.
Yeah, I wasn't going to zoom into that picture because it did look kind of creepy. So I didn't want to see any more than what I could see in the small picture.
Periods ranging from 4000 BCE to 3510 BCE, funerary practices evolved in complexity. The shape of tombs changed from oval to rectangular, mimicking the homes of the living. The size of the burials increased and funerary items became more stylized and numerous. Tombs gained complexity, with masonry, wooden veneers, or raw bricks added to strengthen the structures. In time, socially stratified necropolises emerged. For example, in Hierakonpolis, the elite and commoners had separate necropolises. The term mastaba, meaning massive bench in dialectal Arabic, refers to a form of funerary architecture that was present in Egypt from the Archaic period to the Middle Kingdom. An evolution of the burial pit, mastabas were generally composed of two parts. A structure was built above the ground in the form of a massive rectangle with stepped walls, and a subterranean burial chamber was located underneath. Smaller mastabas often surrounded the much larger tomb of the king. These generally held the remains of the king's relatives and courtiers. The arrangement of the substructure of the mastaba evolved during the course of the Old Kingdom. From the 5th dynasty onwards, mastabas often featured multi-roomed substructures, with sometimes up to 30 rooms. Also, the quantity and quality of decorated surfaces increased noticeably, as well as the number of statues found within. The 6th dynasty would see art used to its utmost. The entire surface of a mastaba would be covered in scenes of daily life, illustrating the prosperity of those lucky enough to comfortably spend eternity near the pyramid of a pharaoh. The best example of this type of mastaba is the tomb of Meroruka in Saqqara.
That's quite interesting, I guess. Oh, I think this is the part in the main game where we come out. Is it? Actually, no, never mind. I don't think it is. Or is it? It was somewhere near here where, in the main game, we fight one of the bosses, I guess you could call them. We come out of one of these buildings and we have a fight on one of these buildings. In fact, yeah, I think it was that one there, because the boss that we're fighting is somewhere over there, just above where my head is, and well, she's firing arrows at us, we're firing arrows back at her. It was a whole kerfuffle. But yeah, anyway, that will do for now. As always, learned something new on this. It's quite an interesting thing. If they do another Assassin's Creed with this quality, not just a quick thrown out Assassin's Creed just to, you know, get the game out in a rush, then they should do another tour mode, because it's quite an interesting thing. You learn new stuff every time. Well, at least I do, because I'm pretty dumb. They could do this on, say, other games, but some games would suit it, some wouldn't. Like, say, Far Cry 5, I don't think that would suit it, because it's Montana. Has anything interesting happened in Montana? No, as far as I know. He doesn't have anything like this going on.
Well, it might, if the miles and miles of endless barren desert without water don't first.
Thank you, God. God just gave me a life lesson there. Don't go into the desert. So yeah, anyway, that will do. I shall probably do some more of this. Wait, what day is it today, actually? I'm confused. What day is it today? It is Wednesday. So I'll probably do some more of this on Friday, because, like I said earlier, I want to try and get this tour mode thing all wrapped up before the 13th, so we can just go straight into the new DLC when that comes out. So yeah, I'll do some more of this on Friday, and then, I don't know, either over the weekend or on Monday. So that'll do for now. So I shall say thank you for stopping by to watch, and I shall see you all in the next video. So until then, bye bye for now.